Jolani Tulo Ngwebe. After that will be sports lines with Fikile Ngwadi. And then we'll let you know what's coming up on this Friday's edition of Rise and Shine.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Ghana's former finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta, wanted at home on corruption allegations, has been detained in the US over issues related to his immigration status. Ghana has previously requested Ofori-Atta's extradition, but his lawyers are challenging this, saying the allegations against him are politically motivated. His legal team said Ofori-Atta left Ghana last year for medical reasons. In a statement, Ofori-Atta's lawyers said their client was lawful abiding and was in the process of applying to change his immigration status, allowing him to stay in the US past the period of the validity of his visa. South Africa's Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwagube will today formally release the findings of the interim report of the National Investigative Task Team into the recent matric examination breach. 26 matric candidates from 7 Pretoria schools were allegedly found to have accessed matric exam papers in 3 subjects: English, Home Language 1, Papers 1, 2 and 3, Mathematics Paper 1, 2 and 3, and Physical Science Papers 1 and 2. As Calvin Mabasa reports, the anomaly was first detected by the Gauteng Education Department, prompting the minister to launch a preliminary investigation.
It revealed the breach originated from the National Education Department's office where exam papers are set. Gwagube said of 162 papers that were set, 7 papers were accessed prior to the examination. 2 basic education officials have since been suspended. During Friday's media briefing, the minister will outline the findings of the investigation, key recommendations and possible action, and the department's intended action to strengthen examination security.
Still in South Africa, the Border Management Authority has intercepted over 20 minors in the vicinity of the Bay Bridge border post. The children aged between 5 and 17 are believed to have been en route from South Africa to Zimbabwe. Among the group were 10 adults. Preliminary verification confirmed that only 1 adult is the parent of one of the children. BMA spokesperson Mem Mkhotsi says this raises serious concerns child protection.
All individuals have been placed under the care of the relevant authorities, and processes are underway to ensure the safety, well-being and lawful handling of the minors in line with the South African laws and international child protection protocols.
The main opposition candidate in Uganda's election taking place on Thursday has called for a freeze on international financial aid to President Yoweri Museveni's government. Bobby Wine says foreign support is sustaining a crackdown on opposition supporters ahead of the polls. He alleges that he has been assaulted by security forces, while hundreds of his supporters have been detained during the election campaign.
Western countries have laws that they can evoke to slap sanctions on those that violate human rights, those that undermine democracy and the rule of law. Unfortunately, they've not. So that comes off as if diplomacy is more important than democracy to them.
And finally, President Donald Trump has signed a memorandum ordering the withdrawal of the U.S. from 66 international organizations. Nearly half of them are UN bodies. Trump has deemed these organizations as operating contrary to the interests of the U.S. Many of these combat climate change and promote peace and democracy. The BBC's Danny Eberhard has the story.
Donald Trump has already stripped many multilateral organizations he dislikes of funds. Now, following a review he ordered at the start of his second term, he's pulling the US out from dozens of bodies he sees as being globalist, inefficient or ineffective. Many deal with the environment, most strikingly the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the treaty that underpins all international efforts to combat global warming, and the IPCC, the expert body that assesses climate science worldwide. Other UN organisations affected include those working on family planning, maternal and child health, peace building and sexual violence in conflict.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, Mitch Guthrie wins Dakar Stage 5 while Henk Lettergan stays on top. And CAF will conduct the final draw for the Total Energies CAF Women's AFCON 2026 next week. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
A very good morning to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us for this, the Friday edition of Rise and Shine, right here on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective, broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg in South Africa. Welcome aboard. I'm Peter Ndoro.
My name is Asanda Beda. You can connect with us on channelafrica.co.za, on the SABC Plus app via mobile phone, as well as at Channel Africa 1. That's where we are live streaming. That very same handle is where you can locate us on our various social media platforms. We'd love to hear your questions and your comments on our programming. And part of that programming today, we go to Uganda, where they are counting down to elections there. That's going to be happening next week. So the latest is the executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance in Uganda, who's also a human rights activist, Dr. Sarah Beriti, is likely to miss those elections, the Ugandan elections scheduled to take place next week, as she was remanded in custody for 20 days by the Buganda Road Chief Magistrates Court on January 3rd. But on the other side of opposition, Bobby Wine is still saying that he would review the country's agreements with international oil firms if he won power, and he wants to revise any that did not favor Ugandans. So he's still that opposition candidate who's pulling through.
And John Mahama is commemorating, celebrating, or marking, depending on your viewpoint, 1 year as president. And remember, this is the second time around for him. We'll be unpacking whether it's been a successful year or not. That's all coming up on Rise and Shine. Stay with us.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chairman.
Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025. Bafana Bafana's opening match is against the Portuguese-speaking nation Angola on the 22nd. What can we expect from Hugo Bros and his charges?
When we went to the previous tournament, we sort of had the underdog tag as a country, and we were a little bit humble. Expectations were not as high as they are now at the moment. So I just felt that players were in a good space psychologically. I just feel that Bafana will still be tournament favorites. But coach Hugo Bros has a lot of work psychologically to make sure that players remain focused, humble, and players are playing without any pressure. Because when South African players are very creative, then we know that the outcomes are very good. But when they are under pressure, we know that sometimes the outcomes can be what we don't want to experience.
Coach Thabo Senoko.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Every morning after the 6 o'clock news, we bring you something we call the Africa Roundup. And essentially what it is a look back over the last 24 hours of news events and stories that are played out. And this is to catch you up and make sure that you haven't missed out on the most important stories of the day. And we use our team of journalists, correspondents and analysts to make sense of those stories for you, which we hope will set you up for the news day ahead as well. So let's begin the Africa Roundup with this story. Relations between Somalia and the United States have hit a new low after Washington announced it would pause further assistance benefiting the Somali government. The U.S. State Department Undersecretary for Foreign Assistance claimed on X, formerly Twitter, that Somali officials had destroyed a U.S.-funded World Food Program warehouse and illegally seized donor-funded food aid intended for vulnerable populations. Somalia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has disputed the claim, insisting that the aid remains under WFP custody.
A United Nations analyst says the U.S. decision to withdraw from 66 multilateral organizations highlights Washington's my way or the highway approach to international cooperation. Daniel Forti, head of UN affairs at the International Crisis Group, argues that the U.S. is leveraging its political and financial influence to shape multilateral institutions around a narrow set of national priorities. SABC News UN correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Peace says more.
Let me read you what the statement from the Secretary General spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says in reaction to the United States decision to withdraw from 66 multilateral international organizations, 31 of those aligned with the UN system. Quote, the Secretary General regrets the announcement by the White House regarding the United States decision to withdraw from a number of United Nations entities. As we have consistently underscored, assessed contributions to the United Nations regular budget and peacekeeping budget as approved by the General Assembly are a legal obligation under the UN Charter for all UN member states, including the United States. All United Nations entities will go on with the implementation of their mandates as given by UN member states. The United Nations has a responsibility to deliver for those who depend on us. We will continue to carry out our mandates with determination. One of those entities, as you well know, is among the 66 is UN Women. I reached out to the former executive director of UN Women, former deputy president of South Africa, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. She said this to me: this puts the women's agenda at risk. I hope other member states will unite in their resolve to do what is right for women and girls. And of course, this becomes a financial question for these UN entities.
Uganda's main opposition candidate, Robert Kyagulanyi, otherwise known as Bobi Wine, says that he would review existing agreements with international oil firms and renegotiate any deals that don't benefit Ugandans. The country expects commercial crude oil production to begin later this year from fields operated by France's Total Energies and Uganda's national oil company under production sharing agreements. Now, this report by the Reuters news agency.
As per oil, you know that
Uganda's main opposition candidate, Bobi Wine, said he would review the country's agreements with international oil firms if he won next week's election. Uganda expects to start commercial crude oil production later this year, when fields run by France's Total Energies, China's CNOOC, and Uganda National Oil Company come online.
We shall study all agreements, and any part in those agreements that does not favor Ugandans will definitely be revised.
Wine, a former pop star, is challenging President Yoweri Museveni for the second straight election. Uganda discovered the oil 20 years ago, and its oil reserves are estimated at 6.65 billion barrels.
Western countries
Wine criticized Western allies for continuing to support Museveni's government, despite crackdowns on opposition supporters. He said he had been beaten twice by security forces during campaigns and blocked from campaigning in certain areas.
South African President and African National Congress political party ANC leader Cyril Ramaphosa says that despite ongoing challenges, the ANC remains a special organization in the country. He made the remarks during the party's 114th anniversary commemoration. SABC News' Nhlanhla Katlani reports.
Marking 114 years since its founding, but this time around, the ANC is not in a good shape politically. Party President Cyril Ramaphosa says, despite the challenges the party faces, the ANC's role will never be eroded as it is on the path to renewal.
There is no other organization in South Africa today, one, that is 114 years old, two, that has shown the level of commitment that the ANC has shown in improving the lives of our people. 3, that has changed South Africa around.
A thorny subject is how to navigate the 2026 local government elections after its ally, the SACP, resolved to go at it alone in the future.
China's top diplomat, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, has begun his annual New Year tour of Africa, focusing on boosting trade. His visits will include Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania and Lesotho. Here's a report by Laura Westbrook.
Africa has been the destination for China's foreign minister's first overseas trip in a new year for decades. Beijing's foreign ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning says the tour aims to deepen political mutual trust as well as strengthen exchanges. Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Ethiopia highlights Beijing's aim to expand export markets. And Ethiopia is particularly attractive given the IMF predicts it will grow 7.2% this year. Wang Yi's visit to Somalia will be the first by a Chinese foreign minister since the 1980s, and it's likely to provide Mogadishu with a diplomatic boost, as it comes after Israel last month became the first country to formally recognize the breakaway Somaliland. That's a northern region that's declared itself independent in 1991.
And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Africa Roundup. I hope you feel caught up with the important news of the past 24 hours. We're going to be focusing on current news and looking ahead as well to a busy week, particularly on the election front. Countries like Uganda, but this weekend, Benin actually is at the polls as well. Stay with us, still more to come.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Tumeona chapisho mapema hii leo ya kwamba Wizara ya Mambo ya Nje ya nchini Marekani imesema inapitia upya uhusiano wake na nchi ya Tanzania. Pengine taarifa hii imepokelewaje na wananchi wa Tanzania?
Cha kwanza tumeiona taarifa ambayo imetoka hii leo. Sisi kwetu taarifa hii haikutushangaza wala haikutushtua kwa sababu tulishaona taarifa kama hiyo imetoka kwenye ubalozi wa Marekani nchini Tanzania, ikiwa imetolewa na Bwana Tom Pigot.
Umezungumza kwa kina kabisa. Haya ni malalamiko ambayo yamekuwa yakijitokeza mara kwa mara. Unadhani sasa wana hoja ya msingi?
Unauliza maswali mazuri sana na maswali ya tafakari. Maswali ambayo hayawezi kujibiwa kwa dakika moja au kwa siku moja. Ni maswali yanayohitaji tafiti, yanayohitaji kusoma.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Just a little shy of 18 minutes past 6 Central African time. Let's look at this story now. There was a heavy police presence outside the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria as members of the South African Communist Party and allied organizations staged a protest against recent U.S. actions in Venezuela. Demonstrators say the detention of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and the United States control of Venezuelan oil amount to a violation of sovereignty and international law. Butlale Pele has more.
The protest, led by the SACP, drew support from civil society groups and international solidarity organizations. Amongst those addressing the crowd was Mohamed Desai, coordinator of Africa for Palestine, who says that the demonstration is about sending a clear message to Washington.
We are here in the main and in the first instance to send a very clear message to the United States. There is a red line, and that red line has been crossed. We are here to stand shoulder to shoulder with our people in Venezuela who have been coming out in their hundreds of thousands, if not millions, demanding the release of their president.
Concerns were also raised about political developments inside Venezuela. Steps for Freedom Director Rahad Desai warned that internal negotiations could place the country's resources at risk.
We now know from what we're reading, we cannot rely fully on the Deputy President of Venezuela. She is willing, it seems, to make a deal with Trump in order to safeguard their borders, but not their oil.
Addressing supporters outside the embassy, SACP General Secretary Solly Mapaila thanked international organizations and regional representatives for their solidarity, while sharply criticizing the United States' actions.
All of you, but we appreciate your presence here. All of you, the speakers, the international organizations, Swaziland, Zimbabwe, and so forth. We really appreciate your presence here to express our joint efforts and views against what America and Donald Trump have done to Venezuela. A military aggression, a military invasion, the abduction of a democratically and constitutionally elected president of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro Moros, and his spouse, Comrade Celia Flores.
Police say the protest has remained peaceful, with no incidents reported. The SACP says it will continue to mobilize international support against what it describes as foreign intervention in Venezuela. I'm Bukhali Pile, SABC News, Pretoria.
Israel's decision to formally recognize Somaliland as an independent state has drawn sharp condemnation from Somalia as well as the African Union, intensifying political tensions across the Horn of Africa. The announcement, reinforced by a recent meeting between Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar and Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi, comes against the backdrop of escalating rivalry over key Red Sea and Indian Ocean maritime routes, as well as heightened security risks stemming from Houthi attacks on commercial shipping. The developments have the potential to realign regional dynamics involving Ethiopia, Egypt, Turkey, and Eritrea. Channel Africa reporter Michael Bewe has more.
Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar held talks with Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi on his first visit to the breakaway region since Israel controversially recognized it as an independent country. In his remarks, Saar said Israel was determined to advance relations with Somaliland with momentum, while President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi hailed his visit as a big day. Last month, Israel became the first country in the world to recognize Somaliland, which declared independence from Somalia more than 30 years ago. Saar also addressed the backlash to Israel recognizing Somaliland as an independent state, saying the decision was not made against anyone and only Israel will determine for itself who it recognizes.
Nobody will determine for Israel who we recognize, Mr. President. Israel is truly honored to be the first UN member state to recognize the Republic of Somaliland as an independent and sovereign state. This is the moral thing to do, and this is what we did. We hear the attacks, the criticism, the condemnations. Nobody will determine for Israel who we recognize and who we maintain diplomatic relation with. We agreed on the mutual appointment of ambassadors and the opening of embassies. We will get that done soon.
Somaliland President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi responded with words of cooperation, reaffirming its ties with Israel.
An evolving relationship between the Republic of Somaliland and the State of Israel. It reflects not only political recognition, but also a shared commitment to transform that recognition into a substantive, forward-looking, and strategic partnership. We see this partnership not as symbolic, but as practical, institutional, and result-oriented, one that contributes to stability, prosperity, and shared interest.
But Somalia sees Somaliland as being part of its territory and condemned Saar's visit as unacceptable interference in its affairs. Speaking to Channel Africa, Somalia Ambassador to South Africa Mohammed Sheikh responded.
The federal government of Somalia reaffirms its non-negotiable commitment to its sovereignty, national unity, and territorial integrity, as enshrined in the Provisional Constitution of the Federal Republic of Somalia, the Charter of the United States, and the Constitutive Act of the African Union, and territorial integrity. Unlawful steps by Israel purporting to recognize the northern region of Somalia, so-called Somaliland region, is an integral party and inseparable party of the sovereign territory of Federal Republic of Somalia. The federal government underscored that Somalia is a single, invisible sovereign state and no external as authorities or standing to alter its unity or territorial configuration, any declaration, recognition, or arrangement.
He called on all states to respect and uphold international law as enshrined in the UN Charter and warned that Somalia would not tolerate the establishment of any foreign military bases in its immediate region.
Federal Republic of Somalia calls upon all states and international parties to respect international law, uphold principle of non-interference and territorial integrity, and act responsibility in the interests of peace, stability, and security in the Horn of Africa. Somalia makes clear that it will not permit the establishment of any military bases or arrangement on its territory that will draw Somalia into a proxy conflict or import regional and international hostilities into this region. So the Federal Republic of Somalia warns that illegitimate action of this nature serious undermine regional peace and stability, exacerbate political and security tension in the Horn of Africa, the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden and the Middle East, and also wider region.
He also confirmed AU's solidarity with Somalia while commending South Africa for extending further its olive branch to the Somalian question.
The African Union has already taken several actions and condemned it in the beginning, and also yesterday held a ministerial meeting for the Member State of Peace and Security Commission, and there was a strong statement. Yesterday, Somalia has already seen its solidarity from African Union, and it is a member state to uphold international law and safeguard the principle of territorial integrity on the continent. Finally, for this occasion, I want to thank, on behalf of the government and people of Somalia, I wish to convey our sincere appreciation to the government and people of South Africa for its solidarity and the principal statement.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says despite its challenges, the African National Congress political party, or ANC, remains a special organization in South Africa. He was speaking at the graves of the late ANC Treasurer General and South African Communist Party, or SACP, General Secretary Moses Kotane and his wife Rebecca in Pella outside Rustenburg, a city in the northwest province of the country. This is part of the ANC's mobilization program ahead of the party's birthday celebrations. The ANC turned 114 years, but its main celebrations will be held on Saturday. Debo Mukobo has more.
A warm welcome for the ANC president in Pella village, in what they call the home of the ANC. This is the home village of the party's late Treasurer General and the Communist Party's longest-serving General Secretary Moses Kotane. Party President Cyril Ramaphosa credited Kotane for managing to handle the dual membership and the dual responsibilities in the ANC and the party under difficult times.
At this moment, Moses Kotane's message would have been, keep the alliance alive, united and strong. And he would have said, renew the alliance, embark on a vigorous renewal process, not only of the ANC or the South African Communist Party alone, but of the entire alliance. So for us to be here really is not only to pay tribute and to pay homage, is to come here and draw from the wisdom of Moses Kotane. This for us is like a fountain of intellectual rigor about the importance of the alliance.
The ANC president says despite the challenges the party faces, the ANC's role will never be eroded as the organization is on a renewal mode.
We are a very special organization. We are an outstanding organization. We have gone through our ups and downs. We are now in the period of rebuilding, renewal, and in the period of refocusing. So there is no other organization in South Africa today, one, that is 114 years old, two, that has shown the level of commitment that the ANC has shown in improving the lives of our people. Three, that has changed South Africa around. South Africa that we have today would not exist as it is without the African National Congress.
But for now, the elephant in the room is how the ANC will navigate the 2026 local elections after its ally, the SACP, resolved to go it alone in future polls. The president said the alliance of Moses Kotane will never die in their hands.
The alliance is not going to die. All of us as leaders of the various components of the alliance, we've committed ourselves to renewal. Renewal not only of our individual organizations, but of the alliance as a whole. And we've committed ourselves to continuing to unify the alliance. We've accepted the SACP's decision to contest for elections. We are going to be settling down with them and discuss the full details of all that. And we've agreed that we are going to have an engagement and have a proper discussion. They have taken that decision. We don't agree with that decision, but it is the decision of the SACP.
Meanwhile, Pella residents have assured the ANC president that come elections, the ANC will reign supreme in the area in honor of the son of their soil, Moses Kotane, and his wife, Mary Becca Kotane. I am Tebo Mokobo, Pella outside Rustenburg.
6:30 Central African Time it is. Let's get our news headlines. Here's Jwalane Tulo Ngwebe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, Ghana's former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, wanted at home on corruption allegations, has been detained in the US over issues related to his immigration status. South Africa's Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwarube will today formally release the findings of the interim report of the National Investigative Task Team into the recent matric examination breach. And finally, the United States has announced the suspension of all assistance to Somalia. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
And it's time now to take a look at what's happening in the world of sport. And we're getting to the business end of the AFCON. The quarterfinals kick off today. And to give us a heads up and perhaps some predictions, he won't. I know he won't. Good morning, Figile Lingwad.
From group stages to the final whistle, the latest update on the ground coverage and analysis that matter. Don't miss this AFCON action on Channel Africa. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Peter. Let's start off first with the final draw for the Total Energies CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON Morocco 2026 will be held in Rabat on the 15th of January 2026. On the same day, the Confederation of African Football will also announce the winners of the CAF Women's Coach of the Year and other outstanding women's football awards. The draw will mark a historic moment for the competition, featuring an expanded 16-team field for the first time. The 16 qualified teams are Morocco as the hosts, Algeria, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Tanzania, and Zambia. More football news. Nigeria left back Calvin Bassey has spoken about the chemistry between the Fulham trio of himself, Samuel Chukwueze and Alex Iwobi, as the Super Eagles continue to scale through the AFCON. The banter between Chukwueze and Bassey, with some tales from the English Premier League club and also in the national team, has drawn some football fans to the attention of this camp. On the field, Nigeria are in a cruising mode as they aim to reach the back-to-back Africa Cup of Nations finals. Is the understanding that is important to Bassey?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a chemistry. We're just trying to bring the understanding. As you can see, me and Alex have great understanding, and Samuel. So we're just trying to bring that understanding and that chemistry we have with our club side to here and hopefully help the team in any way we can. I mean, of course, we were there 2 years ago. We believe in our ability and quality, but at the end of the day, we've got to take each game as it comes. That's the most important thing.
Onto motor racing, Toyota's Henk Lategan retained the overall lead in the Dakar Rally after American Mitch Guthrie Jr. led a fifth stage 1-2-3 for Ford in the Saudi Arabian desert. South African Lategan, last year's overall win runner-up, was 17th in the 371-kilometer stage from the Al Ula Baovak to hail with Qatari rival Nasser Al Attiyah, 16th for Dacia to close the gap to 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Sweden's Matthias Ekstrom remained third for Ford, 5 minutes and 38 seconds off the lead. The stage win was Guthrie's second of the event after Tuesday's success, making him the first driver to win more than once this year, and came after he finished 4 seconds behind teammate Nani Roma. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwadi.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hearty laughter and joyous gatherings. Channel Africa celebrates the season with you on the African perspective.
In just a bit, we take a look at what's to be expected in Ugandan elections. They're going to be voting next week. And we look at what's happening on the opposition front. One of the opposition figures there, Dr. Sarah Birete, who has been remanded in custody for 20 days by the Buganda Road Chief Magistrates Court on January 3rd, that was. And also Bobby Wine continuing his campaign. And that's the main opposition candidate, Wine. And he's saying he would review the country's agreements with international oil firms if he won power. And then also there are other promises that he has. So we'll be discussing that, going to Uganda in just a bit.
Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android.
Madapiri pazoshitika. Madapiri pazoshitika.
Inogeka zingeni chihana lumbiritsidwa kukhala wachiwiri kwa mtsogoleri wa dziko la Malawi pa mwambo omwe unachitika ku nyumba ya chifumu ya Sanjika mu mzinda wa Blantyre. Ndipo pano tili ndi olemekezeka achihana. Takulandirani olemekezeka pano pa wireless ya Channel Africa pa Chinyanja Service. Malawi ayembekezere zotani kuchokera kwa inu ngati wachiwiri winaso kwa president wa dziko.
Choyamba ngati vice president umagwira ntchito yopatsidwa ndi president imene yakuganizira. Ndiye malowozi athu atipatsa bwinobwino, koma ntchito yathu yayikulu ndi kuwathandiza president kuti masomphenya awo yakwanitsidwe. Pali zambiri zoti zichitike, nkhani ya njala mdziko muno, boma la udakali chimanga ndi china chomwe chili mdziko muno kuti tithandize ana families are affected. Chachiwiri kunali ma fuel shortages amene akanaliponso apo ndi apo tionetsetse kuti pumps athu asakhale dry.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
The executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance in Uganda, who is also a prominent human rights activist, Dr. Sarah Birete, is likely to miss the Ugandan elections scheduled to take place next week. This after she was remanded in custody for 20 days by the Buganda Road Chief Magistrates Court starting January 3rd. She was arrested on December 30th at her home. Meanwhile, as campaigning continues, Bobby Wine, the main opposition candidate, says that he would review the country's agreements with international oil firms if he won power and revise any that did not favor Ugandans. To talk to us about the latest in Uganda ahead of these elections, we're joined now on the line by Editor-in-Chief at Kizito Media in Kampala, Edmund Kizita. Edmund, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, compliments of the new season, and I'm sure things are buzzing in Uganda as you guys are heading to the polls next week. Let's start, though, with this in terms of how the arrest of Dr. Sarah Birete affected the situation in Uganda. How has it affected the situation ahead of the elections, and has it been confirmed that she will not be contesting?
Well, Sarah Birete was not contesting. She was basically she's a leading civil rights advocate. She's the executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance and belongs to some para-regional bodies, human rights defenders bodies. She was arrested ostensibly for leaking information that is only supposed to be accessed by the Electoral Commission. She was arrested and charged in court. She was arrested on December the 30th. She was charged in court and remanded till the 21st. So, like you say, she's not going to be part of this election.
Well, how significant is that she won't be able to be part of these elections? What kind of influence will that have, even though she was not meant to be contesting?
She was a critical voice, opening the eyes of many to possible fraudulent acts ostensibly by the government or by the organizers of the election. She was advocating for guarding the vote, which has become a contentious issue. Government officials and organizers of the elections, the Electoral Commission, say after people vote, they should go home. The opposition says there's no reason why we should go home. We should stay and protect our votes. Secondly, she was accused of telling the people to stream, to access and circulate voter results from different polling stations using different methods. Normally, as happened in the last election, the government switches off the internet, and she was advocating platforms such as Starlink and others, BitChat, that people could use to access to circulate election results. As it happens, after the election, they are announced at the polling station, and these can be collated. Now, the Electoral Commission has come out and said that different presidential candidates can have their own tally centers, but they cannot stream results online. They have said they'll not switch off the internet, although no one really believes them there. It's a very contentious issue. So Sarah Birete's arrest kind of silences a critical voice that was apparently opening the eyes of the average voter, most likely the opposition voter, because she was a critical voice to the government, which has been in power for 40 years. So many think she was arrested to silence that voice ahead of the election.
Her lawyers and civil society organizations in the region have said that the charges leveled against her encroach on the work of civil society organizations to educate people about elections and election observation. What is your observation?
Well, the Electoral Commission officially is supposed to certify every election observer. We're not sure at this point whether the Center for Constitutional Governance was certified, was licensed to observe the election. But the charge that was leveled against her is basically circulating information that's supposed to be only in the domain of the Electoral Commission. They say that she accessed the voters' database, which is not supposed to. And the Electoral Commission normally circulates this to political parties a couple of days before the election. So that is the charge against her. Interestingly, there were some other arrests of 3 young men who had created a website link that helps people to verify their voter information online. It's not clear at this stage whether that is linked to Sarah Birete's arrest, but it has created a lot of uncertainty among observers, among the opposition, who think the government is trying to silence a critical voice that could help the election be free and fair next week.
How have ordinary Ugandans taken the arrest of Dr. Sarah, especially given that government has said that it will clamp down on any protests or protest action? Do they feel that they even have a voice at this stage to say something?
Well, the opposition campaign is still vibrant, is still defiant, if you like. They are holding marches in different cities of the country, different towns, different urban centers. The government, on the other hand, has deployed heavily. They say they'll brook no chaos. They've been circulating reports that the opposition plans to burn down cities. The opposition denies that. But the campaigns are still going on. Interestingly, these campaigns have been less violent than the previous campaigns. So the opposition feels they've been given a little bit more space and they want to expand it one step at a time. This far, the opposition candidate has not been arrested. He was arrested. The main leading contender against President Yoweri Museveni has not been arrested this time. He was arrested the last time, and that created 3 days of violence in which an estimated 54 people were killed. No such thing has happened this time, and the opposition is still pressing on, creating demand for greater space, greater freedoms, and we wait to see what's going to happen. They are streaming their campaign events live, and they seem to be defiant this far.
Right. On the other hand of the other opposition, the main opposition, the campaigns are also in full swing with Bobi Wine saying that he will review the country's agreements with international oil firms if he wants power, and he wants to revise any that do not favor Ugandans. How important is Uganda's oil production sector in the economy, and how will that be leveraged for these elections? Do you see it?
Well, oil is supposed to start flowing this year, finally, after several postponements. Now, interestingly, the oil agreements were shrouded in secrecy, not just confidentiality, in secrecy. Not even Parliament could access these oil agreements. Some people were able to see them, but that was, essentially against the law. They've been shrouded in so much mystery that most people think they've been slanted, they've been skewed to favor the people in government, the people who signed the agreements. So they think there's a lot of corruption around the oil agreement. So when Bobi Wine says that, he's playing into very, very popular terrain. Most people think maybe wrongly that oil has already been sold, the country's oil has already been mortgaged, and the proceeds already consumed, so they think that there's no more. One time the president said you should forget about oil, it's not a lot of money. So people seem to think that the oil agreements need to be reviewed. Most people seem to think the oil agreements need to be reviewed, including some legislators, civil society around the oil and extractive industry sector, even other civil liberty and anti-corruption NGOs. They think that the oil agreements were shrouded in secrecy for purposes of corruption, and they should be opened up. So when Bobi Wine says that, he's playing into popular terrain.
What can you tell us about the overall campaigning then that has been taking place? And do you see Ugandans being interested to hear what these leaders have to say in terms of their promises and their roadmaps?
There has been unprecedented interest in these campaigns. We have seen massive rallies, and I've been watching campaigns. I've watched these campaigns for the last 20 years. So I've seen the last 5 elections. 1996, you had crowds, but not as big as this. Maybe the population was smaller. 20 years later, maybe 15 years later, the last election was vibrant. Bobi Wine was standing for the first time. He drew crowds, but we didn't see as much energy as we see now. There was a lot of zeal, yes, but their level of energy, people seem to be expectant. People seem to think that real change can come through these elections. Of course, they are worried. They think that the elections might be rigged in favor of the incumbent, but there's a lot of interest in it. You see a lot of massive crowds. People follow him everywhere he goes. People go to his hotel before he wakes up to go to the campaign venue. They literally can hardly wait for him to appear at the campaign venue. They follow him at his hotel. So you see a lot of energy. They've coined a word around him, electricity. They say he's brought electricity into this campaign. So there's a great deal of campaigns. There's some interest in the other candidates, but the main candidate is Bobi Wine. It's normally a two-horse race. It's still a two-horse race between Bobi Wine and President Yoweri Museveni, who will be turning 40 years in power in a few days' time.
Right. Well, all eyes on Uganda, and thank you so much for your time and your analysis. We appreciate it, Edmund.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
You too. That was Editor-in-Chief at Kizito Media in Kampala, Edmund Kizita, speaking to us on the line as we look forward to what's happening in Uganda ahead of elections that will be taking place next week.
Unwinding with Africa's holiday rhythms. Rejoice with Channel Africa, the African perspective. Let the good times roll. From the 10th of October, make a note. Channel Africa is stepping into a brand new era with the launch of our upgraded website and app. It's easy, fresh, and always on your fingertips. Wherever you are in the world, Africa's voice is just a click away. The future of Channel Africa. Okay. Goes live from the 10th of October. Don't miss the moments. 9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the move with Palisa Tau and Benjamin Mushatama.
Now, when you go to the hospital, there's medical attention that you need, and that's the only experience you're expecting to have. If you are a transgender person, sometimes those experiences can be marred by the demand of trying to understand your gender, your sexuality, and not particularly getting the assistance that you need.
One time, I was sexually abused by someone who used to live next door to my house. So when I went to the police to report, I was in a weave, I was wearing a dress, and when I got there, the police person that helped me said to me, obviously we're gonna rape you because why do you walk around looking like trying to be a woman when you are a man? And after that, the person just walked scot-free.
How do you deal with that? Because there's a double barrel abuse there. So it's not even double barrels, there's kind of multi-dimensional forms of abuse.
I think one thing that I will tell you about trans people is we are strong, not because we want to be strong, but because we don't have an option. It is what it is. Because the struggles that we face each and every day are like unimaginable.
Keeping you on the know and on the move. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Now, a journalists accreditation board, JAB in Tanzania, says that about 4,000 journalists have registered to get licenses. The East African nation this week announced plans to crack down on journalists and the media outlets operating without accreditation. Tutongobeni compiled this report.
The Journalists Accreditation Board, JAB, in Tanzania was launched in March last year, hailed by officials as a turning point for the country's journalism industry. Established in 2024 after amendments to the Media Services Act was mandated to ensure journalists are licensed to write, film, edit, and produce their work for publication. The act also empowered authorities to suspend the licenses of media outlets that violate the law. The board announced this week that it would come after those unlicensed journalists, as it has learned of some people who do not meet requirements but have embarked on duties of journalism after the end of the general election. Acting Director of the board, Advocate Patrick Kipangula, says the JAB is an independent body which seeks to professionalize the sector.
Its establishment addresses long-standing challenge in the media sector, including the absence of clear professional standard, the infiltration of unqualified individuals into journalism practice, and the decline of public trust in the media content. The body operates as an independent institution, our independent statutory body, with the mandate to professionalize journalism, safeguard ethical conduct.
Kipangula says the law states clearly that anyone practicing journalism in the country without accreditation is committing an offense punishable by law.
And if you read Section 19 of the Media Services Act, stipulates clearly that if any person wants to practice journalism in Tanzania, must be registered and must be by the board. So practicing journalism in Tanzania here without accreditation is not legally recognized. So if we read also Section 50, subsection 2B of the Media Services Act, stipulates clearly also that practicing journalism in Tanzania without accreditation is an offense, and the offense is punishable by law.
He says almost 4,000 journalists have already registered on their system and therefore are allowed to practice journalism in the country, with those who are practicing without qualifications given a grace period to obtain the formal qualifications.
Currently, we have 3,700 journalists who are already registered in our registration system, and these journalists are allowed to practice journalism in Tanzania without any obstacle. We have few practice without accreditation. That's why we are reminding them to make sure that they register to meet the qualification of the law and practice journalism without any problem. Also, it should be noted that under Section 67 of the Media Services Act is a transitional provision. This transitional provision introduced a 5-year arrangement to give individuals who were already practicing journalism but did not meet the minimum academic qualification to give them adequate time to upgrade their skills through formal education.
Kipangula says there has been a marked improvement in ethical journalism in the country since the establishment of the board.
There has been measurable progress in ethical journalism since the establishment and the operationalization of the board. One of the improvements is increased awareness and application of the Journalist Code of Ethics.
Meanwhile, critics argue that the interpretation of what is lawful remains in the hands of regulators, enabling them to target outlets critical of government. William Bird, director of Moxie Africa, a media monitoring organization, says the licensing will hinder journalists in Tanzania from expressing their views freely, as it cannot be seen as a tool to ensure good quality journalism.
I think we've known for some time that the situation in Tanzania is unfortunately profoundly negative, especially for journalists. The limitations on media freedom and on journalists' ability to practice their basic craft is severely limited, and this idea and notion of needing to license is fundamentally at odds with their ability for people to freely express their views and share their diverse opinions. It cannot be seen as a legitimate mechanism to ensure good quality journalism. Rather, this is seen as a measure to limit and ensure that only those that are approved by certain people will be allowed to tell their stories. So we need to condemn this in the strongest possible manner.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tuto Ngobeni in Johannesburg.
South Africa's National Consumer Commission, NCC, has issued a recall of a specific batch of NAN Special Pro HA infant formula sold in South Africa, Namibia and Eswatini. The recall follows concerns over the potential presence of a toxin linked to Bacillus cereus, raising food safety concerns for infants. Nestlé, the world's largest food and beverage company which produces the infant formula, and the regulator, NCC, say the move is precautionary with no confirmed cases or illnesses reported so far. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange reports.
The recall of some batches of infant nutrition products has widened beyond Europe to Africa, the Americas and Asia, including Brazil, China and South Africa. The National Consumer Commission in South Africa says the recall follows routine quality checks conducted by the manufacturer abroad. Peton Taba, spokesperson and media relations manager for the National Consumer Commission, explains how the contamination was detected.
Producers and manufacturers of products throughout the world are actually required to do routine checks to ensure that products they produce do comply with various laws throughout the world. So this contamination was detected in Europe, according to Nestlé. Where when they were doing their traceability, they then identified some products or some batches in the Republic of South Africa, Namibia, as well as Eswatini. So they then followed the NCC's product recall protocols.
Nestlé says only one batch of the infant formula was affected locally and that most of the stock never reached consumers. Connie Sitailo, Nestlé Director for Corporate Communications and Public Affairs in the East and Southern Africa region, outlines the scope of the recall.
For us as South Africa, the quantities are quite limited because most of them were still within our control. So we have one specific batch that was imported from one of the affected factories or affected countries. However, we are well in control of that, and we have also notified the relevant authorities to help us make sure that we retrieve everything that is out there that we don't have, which is quite limited and minimal. Products were manufactured on the 15th of June this year, so it could have been for about 6 months on the shelf until now.
Nestlé says that the issue was identified through its global quality assurance processes, prompting further testing of specific ingredients used in infant formula production. Sitailo explains.
So the testing, they identified the presence of cereulide, which is a heat-stable toxin. And now it's used as an oil that is used within infant formula manufacturing. So the potential issue was initially detected during our Nestlé routine global quality verification processes, which actually triggered further targeted testing of what we call arachidonic acid, oil ingredient, and also some of the oil mixes that we use for infant formula products. So once the supplier's batch was found to be non-compliant, Nestle then launched a full investigation and notified regulators in affected markets, which also includes South Africa.
Despite the recall, Nestle says no illnesses have been reported to date.
Some of the symptoms include vomiting and diarrhea, which fortunately right now no sickness or illness has been reported or confirmed both globally and in South Africa. So parents can rest assured. I understand that this could cause concern, but can rest assured that nothing has been reported so far, which is why we precautionary measure to actually withdraw everything that is still out in the trade.
The National Consumer Commission is urging consumers who may still have the affected products to stop using it immediately and return it to the store. Beton Taba explains the role of the regulator in the recall process.
So in terms of ensuring that the product is not in the stores, is the responsibility of the producer, manufacturer, or the store. But to ensure that that product is no longer in the hands of the consumer, that's why we come in as the National Consumer Commission or regulators to encourage consumers to stop using the product and taking it back to the point of purchase for a full refund or an exchange.
At this stage, the Commission says no formal investigation has been launched. Ndaba clarifies the current regulatory position.
There are no investigations as yet. It's just to engage with them to really understand and where we need more information, they need to comply with those requests. We have not initiated any investigation in as far as this recall is concerned. Therefore, we cannot say there are penalties or there are no penalties because there is no investigation.
Consumers in possession of the affected NAN Special Pro HA infant formula are advised to return it to the point of purchase for a full refund. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Channel Africa Radio, you are listening to Rise and Shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda. Right now, we get into the second hour of the program, and here's the news with Jwalane Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Ghana's former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, wanted at home on corruption allegations, has been detained in the US over issues related to his immigration status. Ghana has previously requested Ofori-Atta's extradition, but his lawyers are challenging this, saying the allegations against him are politically motivated. His legal team said Ofori-Atta left Ghana last year for medical reasons. In a statement, Ofori-Atta's lawyers said their client was law-abiding and was in the process of applying to change his immigration status, allowing him to stay in the US past the period of the validity of his visa. South Africa's Basic Education Minister Siviwe Kwagube will today formally release the findings of the interim report of the National Investigative Task Team into the recent matric examinations breach. 26 matric candidates from 7 Pretoria schools were allegedly found to have accessed matric examinations in 3 subjects: English Home Language, Papers 1, 2 and 3, Mathematics, Papers 1, 2 and 3, and Physical Science, Papers 1 and 2. As Calvin Mabasa reports, the anomaly was first detected by the Gauteng Education Department, prompting the minister to launch a preliminary investigation.
It revealed the breach originated from the National Education Department's office where exam papers are set. Kwagube said of 162 papers that were set, 7 papers were accessed prior to the examination. 2 basic education officials have since been suspended. During Friday's media briefing, the minister will outline the findings of the investigation, key recommendations and possible action, and the department's intended action to strengthen examination security.
Still in South Africa, the Limpopo Province Premier Bobi Ramathuba says the most effective way to address the influx of foreign nationals entering the country illegally is for citizens to work with government officials. Ramathuba says in most cases, South Africans are the ones facilitating the illegal entry of foreign nationals. She says this poses a risk to public health, as illegal migrants are usually not screened for illnesses such as yellow fever. 1,000 undocumented migrants from Zimbabwe arrested in Limpopo a day after Christmas while attempting to cross into the country illegally. Ramathuba explains.
These are South Africans
by the way, who are busy transporting these people illegally into the ground. Hence, I'm saying it starts with each and every South African to say, if we can pause and stop blaming the next person and ask myself to say, what is my role as a responsible citizen who is patriotic? Do I have an illegal or undocumented immigrant working as my domestic worker in my house? Am I having a gardener who's not documented?
The case of the two Ndimande brothers linked to the murders of South African rapper Keenan aka Forbes and celebrated chef Dibello Tibbs Motswane is expected to resume in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Siyabonga and Malusi Ndimande were extradited from Eswatini in November 2025 after fighting extradition for several months before withdrawing their appeal in October. They face multiple charges, including a murder charge for a separate matter where a taxi boss was killed in Amamzimdoti. Meanwhile, the trial of the other 5 accused is set to commence in June. And finally, the United States has announced the suspension of all assistance to Somalia. Washington says the decision follows allegations that Somali officials destroyed an American-funded warehouse and illegally seized tons of donor-funded food meant for vulnerable communities. The BBC's Richard Cargo has more.
Somali government officials are reported to have given the order to demolish the warehouse at the port of Mogadishu without notifying international donor countries. This angered State Department officials, who responded by saying that any resumption of assistance will depend on Somali authorities taking responsibility for the incident. It's not clear how much aid would be impacted by the suspension or how long it would last, but it's bad news for a country that's already grappling with a hunger crisis, partly caused by recent funding cuts. Somali officials have not yet responded to the allegations or the decision to halt aid.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Cameroon coach says they are wary of Morocco ahead of their last 8 tests today. And Nick Kyrgios withdraws from Australian Open singles but choose the doubles. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine. Every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
Well, as we enter the second hour of Rise and Shine, we've got quite a few stories to look at. One of them being China's foreign minister, Wang Yi, who has called for enhanced cooperation with Ethiopia in areas including infrastructure, green industry, and the digital economy. So this was during his visit to Addis Ababa that he was speaking about this. It's part of a week-long African tour that Wang is a part of, and he's emphasizing Beijing's readiness to work with Ethiopia to align development strategies, to share governance experiences and support initiatives, among other things, that promote peace and stability. Of course, we are live from Johannesburg. That's where our studios are in South Africa. This is Channel Africa. I'm Asanda Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. Yes, thank you for tuning in. ChannelAfrica.co.za is where we're streaming live from. And you can also catch us on our social media platforms. Just type in Channel Africa and we'll be right there. I'm also going to be looking at John Mahama, President of Ghana. He's been in office for a year. And we're going to be assessing whether it's been a good one, a positive one, or perhaps one that doesn't get a pass grade. Well, we'll be analysing that coming up shortly.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable.
C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed regret at the White House decision to withdraw from a number of UN entities. This after the United States announced its withdrawal from 66 multilateral organizations, 31 linked to the UN system, that the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described as redundant in their scope, poorly run, and that threatened the sovereignty, freedoms, and general prosperity of the United States. The UN chief, through his spokesperson, said all UN entities would go on with the implementation of their mandates as given by member states. Sherwin Bryce Peace reports.
In just the latest gut punch to multilateralism, the United States announced its withdrawal from over 6 international organizations, most within UN structures, drawing this response from the Secretary General through his spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric.
The Secretary General regrets the announcement by the White House regarding the United States' decision to withdraw from a number of United Nations entities. As we have consistently said and underscored, assess contributions to the United Nations regular budget and the peacekeeping budget as approved by the General Assembly are legal obligations under the United Nations Charter for every member state, including the United States. All United Nations entities will go on with the implementation of their mandates as given to us by member states. The United Nations has a responsibility to deliver for all those who depend on us, and we will continue to carry out our mandates with determination.
Among the affected UN entities, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, the Office of the Special Advisor on Africa, the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence and Conflict, the UN Conference on Trade and Development, the Peacebuilding Commission, UN Women, and the UN Population Fund, among others. Listen to Daniel Forti, the head of UN Affairs at the International Crisis Group.
The U.S. withdrawal from about 66 multilateral bodies, both UN and non-UN, further adds credence to the approach that Washington has taken to international cooperation, which is essentially my way or the highway. In comparison to past U.S. administrations, the Trump, which very much supported international cooperation, even if it didn't always agree with the vast majority of how member states wanted to move multilateral institutions, the U.S. has used its political and financial leverage in the multilateral system to very much attempt to shape the system and the direction of cooperation towards a very narrow set of priorities aligned with the current administration's national interest.
The expanded list of withdrawals adds to announcements last year by the Trump administration, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Change Accord, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, and UNESCO, among others.
There are a couple of directions that the rest of the multilateral system will have to address. One is that it can't exclusively wait for the U.S. and have to stop everything to really try and adjust to the U.S.'s needs. Multilateral cooperation will still need to take place. A lot of these bodies, whether it is UN Women, the Family and Population Agency, they still have a lot of work to do, even with reduced capacities. For the U.S., it may present a short-term domestic victory in terms of messaging, in terms of aligning international cooperation with sort of the clear priorities of the Trump administration. But in the long run, the withdrawal of U.S. engagement from a lot of these bodies will have long-term effects that make the world less safe, less healthy, less prosperous.
Asked about the financial consequences for the various entities, Forti explained they were still trying to make sense of it all.
It's a mix of both UN entities and non-UN multilateral bodies, and it kind of gets tricky when you go into the UN side of things, because some of the organizations or parts of the UN system that are on the list are statutory parts of the organization. For example, the U.S. is a member of the Peacebuilding Commission by virtue of being a permanent member of the Security Council. So it's not as if it can signal its exit entirely by just saying it's an executive order. But practically speaking, it may stop its funding to the Peacebuilding Fund, which is a small but flexible financial vehicle that the UN uses for prevention and post-conflict reconstruction.
As the US is seen to be walking away from entities that promote economic development and the Sustainable Development Goals, climate action and gender equity, among others. The question now becomes, how will other major powers respond to Washington's decision and the possibility of China filling gaps that the US has withdrawn from? But these decisions by the United States further align with the country's national security strategy revealed in November last year. That President Trump's foreign policy was motivated by America First, undercutting what it views as radical gender ideology and woke lunacy, while unleashing energy production to reclaim the country's independence. The United States last year also stated that it rejected and denounced the UN agenda for sustainable development. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Now, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has marked 1 year since returning to office after winning the December 2024 elections. In a national address this week, President Mahama described his first 12 months as a period of tough but necessary decisions, largely focused on stabilizing an economy which is under pressure and restoring confidence in key state institutions. He says the next phase of his presidency will prioritize policies that deliver tangible benefits for ordinary Ghanaians, from jobs to cost of living relief. Now, to assess what this first year has achieved, perhaps what it has cost and what lies ahead, we're now joined on the line by Parliamentary Network Africa Director of Communications, Clement Akolo. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, 1 year into President Mahama's presidency and return to office, from your perspective, what stands out the most about this first phase of his administration? Was it a question of continuity? Was it caution, change? How would you describe it?
Yeah, thank you very much. The Mahama's administration actually has been marked by a mantra they have maintained and said that they are resetting the governance of the country, where they are trying to bring some kind of new life into the economy in other areas as well, to ensure that all that the Ghanaian economy has gone through over the years sees a new lease on life. And we could actually attest that the economy has received some kind of some new life, renovations. We've seen that the inflation has gone down. We've seen improvement in economic statistics and all that. So for now, we can say that the Mahama administration is on track with the economy. With other areas as well, we are hoping that all those areas also will turn right. Because the most important thing for Ghanaians right now is about jobs. And even though we are seeing some improvement in the economic statistics, we are waiting to see how that will translate into jobs for the teeming youth of the country.
So the president described the past 12 months as a period of difficult but necessary decisions. Was he able to communicate this very well? I know you talked about a mantra, but is it something that he communicated well and managed politically that the Ghanaians understood and brought on board?
Yeah, we will say that it has been communicated right from beginning. Before the elections, it was part of the mantra of the then opposition political party, that is the National Democratic Congress, who actually were trumpeting that they were going to reset Ghana reset the economy in different ways. And we should say that, yes, it was communicated well, and Ghanaians actually understood what he was saying, because there was some kind of apathy towards the then government, that is the NPP government, on so many areas. When it came to the economy was having challenges. The inflation was over the roof. So many things were not going right. People were also looking out to the jobs that they were not getting. And so when the NDC, headed by John Mahama, then was preaching that they were going to reset the economy, they were going to reset Ghana, they actually understood that that was what was needed. This also translated even in the elections when it came to the parliamentary front, and he had an overwhelming majority in parliament, where the people also gave him the mandate to be able to change a lot of things. And we can also see that he's trying to do a total reset with even a constitutional review kind of thing going on in the country. So I would say that it looks like Ghanaians really understood what he meant by resetting the country. And I think for the first year, we can say, or even the word on the street is that John Dramani Mahama, in his second term, seems to have learned something which he is now putting to paper, or actually taking action to make sure that it happens. But normally,
do you think that he's built up a body of trust? I know that there were institutions that had come under strain in recent years. Has he made meaningful progress in reconstituting them and building trust?
Yes. So far, he has made that progress. And I should say that most of the institutions in the country have actually come to believe that he is the right person at this moment to carry through the development or the leadership of the country. So that trust has been built when it comes to, let's say, the security apparatus. Those who are in charge of the security has shown that he is in charge of what is going on when it comes to security. He has actually appointed a new Inspector General of Police who is overseeing the police department. So far, we haven't had any major issues when it comes to security. Same with the army and all those things. And the major institutions have also shown confidence in him. Like his body language and his communication to the public seems to be resonating very well with the people, and word on the street everywhere shows that they have a lot of confidence in him, and they believe that most of the things that he has said that he's going to deliver it. And even the Global Info Analytics have also come out with a poll that indicates that he has a lot of confidence from the people, above 62%, who think that he's doing a very good job for the country.
Right, so a very good start this current administration. Clement, thanks so much indeed for your insights on John Mahama's first year in office.
Thanks for having me.
That was Clement Akolo, Director of Communications at Parliamentary Network Africa, speaking to us about President John Dramani Mahama's first year in office in Ghana.
The voice of the continent, now online, with all your sports fixtures, lifestyle, and more. Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called for enhanced cooperation with Ethiopia in areas including infrastructure, green industry, and the digital economy. Speaking during his visit to Addis Ababa as part of a week-long African tour, Wang emphasized Beijing's readiness to work with Ethiopia to align development strategies, share governance experiences, and support initiatives promoting regional peace and stability. During this trip, Wang Yi is visiting Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, and Lesotho. For more on this, we're joined on the line by Dr. Emmanuel Matambo, who is Research Director at the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg here in South Africa. Dr. Matambo, thank you for joining us. Compliments for this new 2026.
Compliments to you, Sandra, and to your listeners and viewers as well. Thank you for the kind invitation.
It's our pleasure and thank you. So, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's tour of Africa is set to focus on strategic trade access across Eastern and Southern Africa. Could this be the main objective, or is there more to this visit to these four African countries?
Well, first of all, just to set out the context, there is nothing really remarkable about the fact that the Chinese foreign minister has chosen Africa as the first place to visit during a calendar year. This is a tradition that has been happening for the last 36 years now. What makes this particular visit even more important than would have been usually the case is the global context in which it is happening. Since Donald Trump returned to the White House last year, we have seen that he has taken a hammer to international institutions. He has antagonized not only American rivals, but American allies as well. And if you look at the countries that Wang Yi is visiting, let's talk about Somalia, for example. Trump, just a few weeks ago, he described Somalia as garbage and a place where no one wants to live. He described Lesotho last year during his State of the Union address as a place that no one has ever heard of. And he actually slapped Lesotho initially with some of the biggest tariffs in the world. So that is important to put into context. So China is coming to Africa at a time when it wants to reassure the continent that China is still committed to international institutions. China is still committed to the principles of multilateralism. China is still committed to the organizations such as the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, from which Donald Trump has actually urged the United States to withdraw from. So this is the global context in which this particular visit is happening.
Wang Yi is in Ethiopia. In terms of the significance of Ethiopia in China's broader Africa strategy, what would you say that is?
Well, Ethiopia is colloquially called Addis Ababa is colloquially called the capital city of Africa. It is the country itself. Ethiopia is the seat of the African Union, obviously, and apart from that, it is one of Africa's biggest populations as well. So this visit is quite important, and it is important for two reasons. For the fact that Ethiopia seeks to align its trade development with China, and secondly as well, yesterday we saw that the African Union launched the China-Africa Year of People-to-People exchanges. So that is of continental importance, rather than just being of importance to bilateral trade between Ethiopia and China. So at the time when Donald Trump is withdrawing his commitment, America's commitment to Africa, and to the adverse effects, by the way, of countries such as Ethiopia, this visit here is of utmost importance, because then it gives Ethiopia the reassurance that its trade with China, which is the biggest bilateral trade that Ethiopia has, will continue unabated. So I think this will offer some comfort to the people of Ethiopia, and obviously to the broader context of Africa-China relations.
As you mentioned, Somalia is also one of the lists, or one of the countries on the list. So what are the opportunities for the actual African countries that they could benefit from such cooperation? With the example of Somalia, also the reconstruction and development plans, how may China impact on that?
Well, we can also look at that from from a broader context. We've seen that Israel, the government of Israel, has had a recognition, so to say, of Somaliland, which is kind of an irredentist sect that Somalia claims as its own. Now here China is coming to recognize, to have this relationship with Somalia as well. So I think this is going to be of utmost importance to Somalia itself. And we have to look at the context in which Somalia has struggled with the issues of security. So the opportunities that China offers to Somalia are immense, not only in terms of security, but also in terms of trade and in terms of economics as well, and in terms of people-to-people exchanges. So what we want to see that under the end of the day is the fact that there has to be some substantial differences between how countries such as Ethiopia, Somalia trade with China and how they have traded historically with the West. And that means obviously that China has to help with technological advancement in countries such as Somalia. It also has to help with industrial capacity and industrial building as well. Because if that does not happen, if countries such as Somalia remain net exporters of raw unprocessed materials to China, then the trade asymmetries that Somalia has had with the West, which were detrimental to Somalia, will continue unabated. So there have to be some substantial changes that China uses in its interactions with Somalia.
Dr. Matambo, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much again for your insights.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Emmanuel Matambo is Research Director at the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, looking closely into China, wanting to have closer ties with the countries of Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, and Lesotho, with the Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, on a week-long African tour, touching on different areas of regional peace and stability even, and not just on the economy, on aligning development strategies and sharing governance experiences. So it's 7:30 now, Central African time. Let's get our news headlines. Here's Jwalane Tulo Ngwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, Ghana's former Finance Minister Ndoro, wanted at home on corruption allegations, has been detained in the US over issues related to his immigration status. Premier of South Africa's Limpopo province, Bopi Ramathuba, says the most effective way to address the influx of foreign nationals entering the country illegally is for citizens to work with government officials. And finally, United States climate chief says America's withdrawal from the United Nations climate chief says America's withdrawal from the Global Climate Treaty is a colossal own goal. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's catch you up with some sport as we say good morning once again to Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We kick off with football news. Cameroon head coach David Pagou says that they warn that they are anticipating a difficult test against Morocco when they face off in the quarterfinals of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco today. It is their first AFCON meeting this century and their first clash at the finals for 39 years, 11 months and 29 days exactly. Their first AFCON meeting in 1986 ended 1-1 in the group stages, with Abdelkarim Krimau putting Morocco ahead in the 63rd minute before Roger Milla equalized in the 89th minute. Both teams progressed from Group B. Pagou says Morocco are the favourites.
The past not guarantee the present, so you are focused. You see that up to now, Morocco is on top of the ranking of the African football. So we are come here to challenge them. It's not going to be easy. We are going to try and play with our force. Let us be focused. And then they are young, so they want to write their name in that page of African football. Let them go step by step.
Nigerian left back Calvin Bassey has spoken about the chemistry between the Fulham trio of himself, Samuel Chukwueze and Alex Iwobi. As the Super Eagles continue to scale through the AFCON, the banter between Chukwueze and Bassey, with some tales from their English Premier Club and also in the national team, has drawn some football fans to the attention of this camp. It's the understanding that it's important to Bassey.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a chemistry. We're just trying to bring the understanding. As you can see, me and Alex have great understanding, and Samuel. So we're just trying to bring that understanding and that chemistry we have with our club side to here, and hopefully help the team in any way we can. I mean, of course, you know, we were there 2 years ago. We believe in our ability and quality, but at the end of the day, we've got to take each game as it comes. That's the most important thing.
And World Football's governing body FIFA and TikTok reached the first of its kind preferred platform agreement to enhance coverage of FIFA World Cup 2026. New concept will elevate access, opportunities and promotion of original content for fans as part of the FIFA strategy to engage with third-party social platforms. Partnership will be anchored by TikTok's FIFA World Cup 2026 hub and include behind-the-scenes access, global creator program and more. Now, tennis news. Nick Kyrgios ruled out playing singles at the Australian Open, focusing only on doubles with 5-set matches, a different beast. The 2022 Wimbledon finalist made his comeback after an injury-ravaged 3 years at the Brisbane International this week, but lost in the opening round 6-3 and 6-4 to American Alexander Kovacic. Despite being in the running for a wild card at his home Grand Slam starting at Melbourne Park on the 18th of January, the Australian showman said he was not ready to play singles. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hearty laughter and joyous gatherings. Channel Africa celebrates the season with you on the African perspective.
Right, it's 7:35 Central African time. I know that it feels like they've been around forever, but just to let you know that today in history, 2007, guess what was introduced to the world, Asanda Beda?
2007.
Yes.
I've gone blank.
The iPhone.
Oh, wow.
Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone to the world in 2007 on this day. And it changed the game. In those days, I think it was Nokia and Motorola were leading, but he decided we're taking our computers and putting them into a phone. So yeah, significant moment in history, I think.
It's also a costly moment in history for us. Yeah, no, we've been spending too much money on those phones. But anyway.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect. Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after a signing a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. A fresh morning, a fresh...
Now, as the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco enters the crucial quarterfinal stage, the tournament has already seen several favourites eliminated, and not without controversy. Reports indicate that the Confederation of African Football, CAF Referees Committee, is facing internal turmoil following a series of contentious officiating decisions, particularly in the knockout rounds. Critics argue that the tournament has highlighted significant officiating issues, and some suggesting that refereeing decisions have favoured Morocco, the host nation. Well, for more on this, we're now joined on the line by SABC News senior sports journalist Sifiso Ramara. Sifiso, always good to talk to you. Happy New Year, my brother.
Happy New Year to you, Peter. Good morning and good morning to the listeners.
From what you've seen so far, how would you assess the overall quality and credibility of the 2025 AFCON, both on the pitch and off it?
Well, I must say, we've seen top quality football on the field of play. I mean, I've been saying this thing over and over again that it seems like the gap between the so-called big nations and smaller nations has closed. There's no easy match in Africa anymore. You look at the teams like Comoros, Tanzania. They gave their all against the so-called big nations. I remember the opening match of the tournament, Morocco against Comoros. I mean, Comoros, they gave Morocco a run for their money. That match went into halftime. The two teams still deadlocked 0-0. It only took, brilliance by the Moroccans to break the stubborn defense of Comoros. I think they ended up winning that match 2-0. So that's a clear indication that the gap has closed dramatically between so-called big and small nations. But like you said, if you look at the standard of refereeing this year compared to the standard of refereeing in the Ivory Coast 2 years ago, one can simply say, there is a big difference. I think the standard of refereeing this year, it's questionable somehow. Yeah, I heard you saying, refereeing decisions favor the host nation. But I can tell you now that not only the host nation, because we've seen, the attendance when it comes to North African countries, all their matches are packed to the rafters. So I can simply say, the refereeing decisions to a larger extent favored North African countries, the likes of Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, and so on and so forth. I mean, there was a workshop for all the teams involved in the tournament to try and, teach the teams about, the new FIFA rules and the interpretations. But I'm not too sure if, the referees managed to, implement the rules as expected. I mean, a lot of teams will obviously cry foul about the standard of refereeing. What comes to mind, obviously, is the match against the hosts, Morocco and Tanzania. Morocco won that game 1-0 via a goal that was scored in the 64th minute. But very late in that match, Tanzania, they got what looked like a legitimate penalty. A Tanzanian player was clearly fouled inside the box, but the referee decided to waive play on and did not even go for VAR to check if there was a foul or not. So I think Tanzanians, wherever they are, they will feel changed about that particular decision, Peter.
In your view, I mean, I think you've partly answered this next question, but these controversies about poor decision making, is it inconsistencies in terms of application of the rules? Is it poor decision making? Or do you think that there are deeper problems, maybe even deliberate decisions being made within African football officiating?
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of factors, Peter. Well, let's not forget that referees are also human. It goes down to human interpretation, even VAR. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of VAR. I mean, we can see week in, week out what happens in many leagues throughout the world, particularly in the EPL. I mean, VAR, what looks like, legitimate goals, those goals they get, it's allowed. But the fact of the matter is that VAR as well involves human interpretation. If Peter Ndoro is sitting on the VAR desk, Peter is an individual. You have to apply, your mind with regard to decisions that, are made in football. So VAR is also human. So, it's a problem, Peter. I mean, we've seen a lot of stoppages in this particular AFCONs. I mean, referees, consulting with those who are manning the VAR, and some of the decisions, I mean, leaves much to be desired, I must say.
So, I guess perception is key to all of this. In the end, will people look at this tournament and say that a fair result was given? In other words, despite these decisions, do you think that so far the best teams have managed to get through?
Yeah, well, despite, the wrong or controversial refereeing decisions that we've seen so far, I mean, if you compare this year's tournament and the tournament in the Ivory Coast 2 years ago, like what Bafana Bafana coach predicted, to say this is going to be a more difficult competition with all the so-called big teams advancing to the latter stages of the competition. And I think that's exactly what happened. You look at the 8 teams remaining in the tournament: Mali, Senegal, Cameroon, Morocco, Egypt, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, and Algeria. Without any doubt, those are top teams, on the African continent. And, despite all the controversies, one might simply say these are the 8 teams that deserve to be in the last 8. And we're expecting very mouth-watering clashes, starting from this evening in a match between Mali and Senegal. Peter?
Has CAF taken any concrete steps so far, such as referee suspensions, maybe internal reviews, or disciplinary measures, maybe done quietly on the sidelines, or has the response largely been defensive?
Yeah, what I must say, Peter, is that in a tournament like this, normally, referees, they get, analyzed and reviewed after each and every match that they handle in a tournament. Like you will have a big number of referees when the tournament starts. But as the tournament progresses, referees, like teams that go home, referees must also go home, Peter. You can't start a tournament with 50 referees and end the tournament with 50 referees. As soon as teams get eliminated in a tournament, referees that did not perform well, I will emphasize the fact that they are also sent home, so that, there's a good proportion between the number of teams left and the match officials that are still remaining in the tournament. Obviously, referees that do not perform well, they are easily sent home, Peter, and I don't think it will end there, because there are, tournaments throughout Africa, whether it's inter-club competitions and whatever. And if referees are not up to scratch, it's going to be difficult for CAF to consider those referees in the near future. So I must say that punishment is meted out to referees that are not up to scratch in a tournament of this nature. Peter?
And Sifiso, now that we know who the top 8 are, who's your money on? Who's looking likely to lift the crown in your view?
Yeah, Peter, it's difficult to say, man, but, Nigeria, I'm tipping Nigeria to go all the way, Peter. If you look at, a number of factors. I mean, the Super Eagles, they did not qualify for this year's World Cup in the Americas. So I think, they will go all out to make sure that, they win the Africa Cup of Nations, just to make sure that, they ease the pain of failing to qualify for the World Cup. But Egypt, they are also a formidable side, Peter. You look at Senegal, they also have all what it takes, to lift this particular trophy. Egypt can also not be written off. So I can't wait to see, the last 8 matches starting from tonight, Peter.
Sifiso, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much indeed for giving us that update and analysis on the refereeing. But as you say, mouth-watering fixtures now going forward. Thanks so much indeed.
It's a pleasure, Peter.
That's senior sports reporter for the SABC News, Sifiso Ramara, giving us an update on AFCON. And Brother Benjamin Mushatama is in the house because 10 minutes from now, On the Move is going to be in studio. Brother Benjamin.
Are you still interested in AFCON since Sadak is not so...
You know what? We have to be. We have to be. And part of it is that I want actually some teams to be knocked out so Manchester United could get its players back.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you.
How are you today, Benji?
I'm good, guys. I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to be looking back at the conversations that we've had in the year 2025. We've been doing this whole, looking back into the year 2025, right? And when you do look back, it's interesting the things that you actually find out about, yourself or about others, And so we're going to try track our show and try to discover what it is that defines our show today. So we're going to be doing the kind of retrospective look at On the Move.
Wow,
Nice.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No, what defines your show are two people that I know very well. Benjamin and Bellis.
Maybe Mavericks of note.
So you'll be giving notes to the marketing team as well, I guess. Then it's going to be easier for them to place you with outside broadcasts and sponsorships.
No. That's their job.
That's the business part.
Yeah. The thing is, it's a hard one because, you're on air a lot.
Yeah.
Over a year.
Sure.
I know sometimes it feels like we're already mid-January, but there's so many people you spoke to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many subjects that you explored.
And it's interesting that sometimes as a broadcaster, you could take that for granted.
Yeah.
But when you actually reflect on those conversations and the hours that you've been on air and spoken to the people that you're speaking about, it's such a beautiful opportunity and a huge responsibility that we have as broadcasters, right?
Is there one that stands out for you, a conversation?
I really loved our interview with Tebe last year. The Kwaito star. I don't know, he was just such a cool vibe. He was just easygoing.
Yes.
He didn't feel like a celebrity. He felt like the brother next door. So easily relatable. He's like that homie that abuti mang mang.
And as a consumer watching that, I also appreciated that interview because I watched it as well.
Sure.
I saw that, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that was fun.
That's On the Move then, coming up.
Cheers to rest and renewal. Festive African greetings from Channel Africa. Go on, download the Channel Africa app.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
As 2025 draws to a close, we pause to honor the spirits that connect us. The festive season reminds us of what truly matters: family, community, and unity. No matter where you gather or reflect, Channel Africa is with you, bringing you stories and voices that are shaped by the African perspective.
Something significant happened on this day. Asanda, you were a baby, I'm sure. I'm not even sure if you were born. No, you were a baby, yeah.
Yoga. Matseko is still trying to convince me.
No, I've done that already, and you're going to come now on the journey.
I will try.
From all of us to all of you, may your season be safe and peaceful. Channel Africa, the African perspective. From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Final story on this Friday on Rise and Shine. The United States is tightening its visitor visa rules. From January 21st, applicants from 38 countries seeking tourist and business visas may be required to post a refundable security bond of between $5,000 and $15,000. The State Department says the decision on the bond amount will be made by consular officers during visa interviews. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa has the details.
According to information published on the State Department's website, posting a bond does not guarantee that a visa will be issued. Applicants instructed to pay without approval from a consular officer will not receive a refund. Caroline Laviette is the White House press secretary.
Trump administration has done more to limit migration, both illegal and legal, than any administration in history. And I'll just walk you through some of the actions that we have taken thus far. Number one, the Trump administration issued a travel ban for 19 countries, including Afghanistan, special immigrant visas, which is a legal pathway to get here, which we know many Afghans have utilized to come into the country, have now been paused since the tragic shooting last week. Refugee admissions were suspended for Afghans from this administration on day one, and refugee admissions into the country right now are essentially at zero, with the exception of Afrikaners fleeing persecution in South Africa.
I spoke to Professor Lauren Landau, a senior researcher at Wits University's African School for Migration and Society. I asked him whether visa bonds of up to $15,000 actually reduce overstays or whether they merely shut out legitimate travelers from poor countries. Here's what he had to say.
Will $15,000 visa bond block people from coming? It won't stop the undocumented migrants, the overstayers, the others who come in without a real program for how to stay. Those people are already coming in under the table without documents, coming in under other mechanisms. It might block a few of them, it might block some that come in on tourist visas, but what it will do is block students, business people, highly skilled people who could make an enormous contribution to the United States. So what are we doing? Are we going to stop migration? No. Are we going to stop highly skilled and useful migration? Probably.
Professor Landau says the policy is unlikely to have a significant impact on tourism, business travel, or people-to-people ties with Africa and other affected regions.
The diplomatic implications of these measures, together with everything else that the administration has said, are severe. But they will be felt in the short term more from the African side because the United States administration is not interested in good relations. They don't have an interest or an ability to foresee what are the country's long-term interests, whether that is with Africa or whether it is with its long-term allies. These policies are meant to isolate the United States from any external influence while preserving its access to their resources, to their money, to U.S. power. And I think that will happen in the short term, but in the long term, this will undermine not only African countries, who may find ways of becoming more independent away from the United States, but it will definitely hurt in the long term the U.S. interests.
He adds that, in his view, the United States is not particularly concerned about how such measures affect African citizens.
These kind of policies will have enormous impacts, not so much on tourism. African tourism to the United States is low. Will it block business travel? Potentially, although I think in this era of digital communication, actual travel is perhaps less important. But it will have enormous implications for partnerships, for the brand, and for the willingness to engage with the United States. The United States, at least its leadership, is not interested in Africa, is not interested in the people of Africa. It may be interested in the resources, the material resources that Africa has to offer. But for those to come to the United States, doesn't require a single African to be involved.
As debates grow over the fairness and effectiveness of the policy, questions remain about the broader impact on U.S. relations with countries now facing this stricter visa requirements. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Mpumalanga, South Africa.
So don't go to the U.S. then. That's what they say to us.
I probably won't get a visa because they look at your social media postings, and I have been not flattering to the United States president.
So, but you're more vocal on Facebook than X. I think they follow X more than these other
on X.
platforms.
That's where my
Is
biggest following is.
Okay,
and
then just stay home.
3 years at least I won't be allowed into the US. So I'm not even bothered about that one. But it is a challenge. My son's graduating, and she's a Zimbabwean passport holder, and they're not getting visas, so she may miss his graduation.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, next week we're back to regular programming on Rise and Shine. That will be from 6 till 9. So make sure to join us from that. I'm Asanda Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro. We hand over to On the Move.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
All right, we are moving on. Thanks to Asanda and Peter for making sure that we're updated on what's happening here on the African continent. Well, it's time for On the Move. We'll be with you until midday Central African time. Right now, it's 800 hours Central African time. Let's get our news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Top stories: Somalia reacts to the U.S. withdrawal of aid, and South Africa seeks ways to deal with the influx of foreign nationals. Good morning.